always wondered why. I mean, we have done very well in India. So any comment that I make is not a criticism of what we are doing in India today or what we did 20 years ago. That's not my. But what will India be and what we need to do is my focus. So I would offer that as an opening comment. I'm not one of those who groans and moans. I am the proud product of a system which has been created by our leaders and founders over 80 years. There are parts of it which are not so nice. There are other parts which are great. But it's a journey. It's like a child. In infancy, there will be crapping, and in adolescence, there will be odd behavior. But we have to look at how to make that person into a responsible citizen. And if I look at Indian manufacturing and enterprise in that light, then I can't criticize the childhood and the adolescence. I must look forward. So I've got lots of stuff to say to you, but I will be disciplined and try to say a few things in a sharp way rather than everything that I have prepared, because my mind is bursting with various thoughts and ideas. And so what I have been applying my mind to is there are some symptoms we have in the Indian Enterprise Charter. First of all, we don't have anything called enterprise in India. We have MSME, SME, large scale, small scale, trading, exports, startups, mature companies, and the number of ministries and people we have is quite large to deal with. And that's one of the challenges. Many of you are operating these companies, so you know this. So the first thing I thought of is, why do we not have enterprise as a central part of economic and social planning in our country? We have an Industries Development and Regulation Act. We have MSME Act. We have SME Act. We have banks for small finance, banks for big finance. Now, maybe all these are required, but who's the orchestra conductor? Who's making them all come together? Today, if you see the contribution to the GDP of our country of manufacturing, trading, startups, SME, MSME, services, if I put all the economically active sectors of our economy, we are at a level of about 45-50% of the GDP. I think it should be 75-80%. And it's that belief from my 45 years of my corporate career that India is capable in the coming 30-40 years to have that go up to 70%. We can be a business-driven, enterprise-driven society for the benefit of the country, by the way, not to make a few people rich. If you can see the number of enterprises registered with the government, it is 75 million. It's staggering. One-man show, two-man show, 1,000-man show, 2,000-man show, everything included. Of the 75 million, how many use a capital of 50 crores and above? I'm taking not a huge sum of money, 50 crores. Nowadays, CEOs in companies get 50 crores in 1 year. And it's quite a large number of people. But the number of enterprises which have more than 50 crores of capital is 20,000. Of the 20,000, how many are in the stock exchange? They are worthy of being listed. Stock exchange is like a person, my son has grown up, he has finished college, he's now started a job. That means he's got some public responsibilities. 5,000. Out of the 5,000, how many are talked about by everybody? Tata, Ambani, Adani, their stocks, Reliance results are coming, the pink papers are full of them, the television channels are full of them. How many? 2,000. Are we a land of pygmies, where there are a large number of little ants running around, called SME, MSME, and one or two giants walking with, that too, they are not 7 feet tall, they are only about 4 feet tall by global standards. What kind of enterprise world have we created in India? And it's, as I said, it's not a criticism of what happened in the past, but a vision for the future. And so, when I look at the word enterprise itself is new in our economic planning. We may use it in our conversations, but enterprise, anything that generates an economic good, is new. But we don't have an Indian enterprise charter. And I think that is the point I'm trying to pitch for the future. And if IRIM can contribute to creating such a charter, I'm very happy to work with you to the small extent of my experience, but you have many more people who will have ideas. Just like when our country became independent, there were many pressing problems. So many pressing problems, far more than today. But a newly independent country, which has been the only country which got independence in 1947 and which has survived with a reasonably robust, there's no perfect democracy. So in the same way, they got Ambedkar to come, and we all know the contributions of what Ambedkar and various other leaders did in giving us the Constitution, the preamble. We need a new enterprise Ambedkar. And I'm inviting Mr. Anand Louis, if IRIM, it could be CII, it could be FICCI, it could be anybody, to try to get some intellectual horsepower behind a simple idea. How do you create the equivalent of an Ambedkar for enterprise in India? There'll be a preamble, and then there'll be the main part of it. And I want to call it, there'll be no Viksit Bharat, whatever the sloganeering may be said, without a Viksit Vyavasai. Vyavasai is enterprise. Industry, manufacturing, services, IT, digitization, AI, trading, exports, all this forms Vyavasai. And therefore, I'm not here to give you slogans, but my imagination, there are only 3 things that a nation can have to advance. Curiosity, you must have imagination, and you must have compassion. If you have these 3 things, you got a very good raw material to fashion. You can make a BrahMos missile of human endeavor. That is the basic point I want to come to. Now, we need people in enterprise who are builders, who are protectors, not extractors. You can extract the juice out of what you have, capital, profits, wealth, but for what purpose? And therefore, it is important for the nation to define in this enterprise charter what kind of enterprises we want. That they will give economic value and community value for society as a whole. Many of us don't have that. We start a business and we just start a business, and then you say, which of my 4 sons will take over? Then some things happen, and then life goes on that way. Our Constitution shows us a different path, that in the middle of chaos of partition and various things that happened at that time, they could put down in the preamble the values that would drive this country. The mere fact that that Constitution and its preamble has not only survived but prospered for 75, 80 years, and is the only example in the world which got independence, decided and committed to form a democracy, and has stayed a democracy, not broken up. tells us there is something positive in that lesson. So I would like very much to see enterprise take a mature route through this Indian Enterprise Charter. We need a community orientation, values. We need a state commitment. We need a national philosophy. And to extract a national philosophy is very tough in this country. Yeah, Viksit Bharat is a slogan, it's not a philosophy. A national philosophy is how can you get the public sector to collaborate and advance private enterprise? I take the small example, a very minor example. I've heard this morning from Dr. Pillai, a far more inspiring example. Back about 50 years ago, 1980s, we had an officer in Tata's called Xerxes Desai, and a film has been made. It's on the OTT for those of you who watch Prime Video. And he got this idea that why cannot India make a wristwatch? The only wristwatch available at that time, when we were all young students and our aspiration was to get a watch. That was a big event in life. If you got an HMT Citizen, then you've been a good boy to your father, and your father has done well enough to buy you an HMT Citizen, for which there was a queue. You had to wait. And he got this idea, why can't India make watches? And the story is a long one, I won't go into it. But watches were reserved for small-scale sector, not for Tatas. So various attempts were made how to deal with this bureaucratic problem. They were not very successful. And then Tamil Nadu Industrial Development Corporation, it's called TIDCO for short. They were being given licenses in the public sector. It was reserved for small scale or public sector. So TIDCO now said, I have got a license, but I don't know how to do it. You know you want to do it, but you don't have a license. Can we have a boy meets girl arrangement? And they met, thanks to a particularly imaginative chairman of TIDCO, I have to mention. And they made a company called Tata Industries, Tata and Tamil Nadu Industrial Development Corporation, Titan. Tamil Nadu Industrial, Tata, with an N added to it. And today, they both started with 10 crores. Tata's put 10 crores, they put 10 crores. Today, the TIDCO's 10 crore investment is worth 100,000 crores. 1 lakh crores. I don't think there's been any more profitable investment by any public sector to create a company in which their shareholding is worth 100,000 crores. I mentioned this as a minor example of how a state and a private enterprise can cooperate rather than see each other as having different agendas. And when I heard the story this morning about BrahMos, I saw shades of that, but on a very different level and scale. You created a sort of a Palantir in India, a sort of, not exactly, which is marked by the fact that government is not interfering. If they can help you, they'll help you, otherwise they'll lay off and let private enterprise get on. It's my dream, for whatever number of years is left for me, that we should be able to achieve this. And this is the central point of what I want to leave with you. I mean, I can go on giving you all the stuff I've written. I'm writing a lot on this. One of my books is also coming on this, but it's something I feel very passionately about. And I'm sharing with you because somebody here, and maybe through the focusing lens of IRIM, you can give some life and form to it. This constitution is very important, not constitution, Indian Enterprise Charter. I call it Viksit Vyavasai Charter. Nowadays, it's nice to have a Sanskrit-based slogan. It serves multiple purposes. So I'm also trying to revive my ability to do that. In this country, in our country, there are some states. Please don't think I'm being chauvinistic about Tamil Nadu. It just happened to be that it's a very progressive state. It's very regressive in many ways, but I'm not here to talk about the regression, I'm talking about the progresses. Female literacy, female participation in labor, industrial growth, and through their own, every state has monkeys running it, and those monkeys have other monkeys sitting on their back. So it's not for me here to talk about it. But Tamil Nadu, thanks to policy started in time of Kamraj, have progressed in a way. Kerala, Human Development Index, is quite fantastic. In fact, the whole south and the west, I would say, and the north and the east is somehow left behind. In physics, they will tell you that this is the centrifugal forces must be there, not centripetal forces. We are creating a centripetal force because the gap between them is expanding at a rate which is causing all sorts of other problems which are not good. And I think we need to address it. So, everybody says China is fantastic. I've been a lot to China in the last 25 years. While I may not agree with their systems and so on, I am not one of those China haters either. There are as many crooked Chinese as there are crooked Indians. There are as many pirating, unprincipled Chinese as there are of my own compatriots. So let's not be judgmental about other people. But if you and China were in the same classroom in third standard, both of you are coming 20th in class, your per capita GDP was the same, your manufacturing was the same level, your state of living was similar, and 40 years later, they are 5 times your per capita GDP, 5 times your GDP. They have done some things which you have to give them credit for. And therefore, I have been very interested. Both my former employers, Unilever has a $4 billion business in China. Tata's have an $8 billion business in China. I didn't set them up, so I don't take any credit. But luckily, I've been sitting at a position in my respective companies at that time where I could have a ringside seat of seeing what's happening, where other people were setting up these companies and running it. And China, as you remember, all of you know, had 10% growth for a dream run of 25 years. We all know this. So I disaggregated the Chinese rate of growth. I disaggregated the Indian rate of growth. From the proverbial Hindu rate of growth of 3%, we have moved to 6%, 7%. But whatever the sloganeering outside may be, our growth rate has been 6.5% for the last 25 years. So there's no point saying some new energy has arrived. There is something different we must do. Thank you very much. 6.5 is better than 3, but we want 9. And I think after disaggregating, I think I have touched some parts of the GDP where people like you and the many, many thousands like you and millions can do something. The first is we need more export growth. Having the Commerce Minister or Prime Minister's picture in the newspaper every morning, having free trade agreements with people who are furthest away from you, America, Sweden, Australia, you are not having anything with your neighbors. Your exports as a percentage of GDP is static for the last 20 years. Why should it be so? Is exports not a market? Outside my old Tata establishment in Nellore, in Tamil Nadu, there is a factory called Apache. So I was intrigued, what is Apache doing here? It's a footwear factory. I said, yeah, in Tamil Nadu there are many footwear factories. No, the CEO was called Ding Dong and the CFO was called Ping Pong. They're all Chinese. Why is a Chinese footwear factory sitting in Nellore? And then I've been tracking them. They started making 20,000 pairs of shoes. Today they're making 2 million shoes per month. Per month. Who are they making it for? Adidas, all the, maybe the shoes you're wearing are all made by Apache, paid for by you in London for £100, but made in Nellore. And I said to myself, I was in Tata and I was chairman of Tata Taco Nanjing. And I was very interested to see that you're making what is seemingly simple plastic component in the interiors of a motor car. Why should we be able to do it in China? And what is the advantage of that? I won't go into the business logic and detail, but it was so successful that we were invited by our customers, international car companies, aerospace companies, to come and put up a second factory. So I went for the inauguration. By that time, I was the chairman of the company. And I've seen the number of enterprises that we have in China, that the mark of a good entrepreneur is he doesn't look at the gross thing. He's like a physicist. He doesn't look at the gross thing. He looks at the components and finds out where it is that he can make a difference in the leverage. And that's where business lies. And so the first thing that I found was China gets additional growth of 3 percentage points every year out of exports. We get virtually nothing. Our exports are static. Export is also a market, whether you're MSME, SME or whatever. It's also a market for you. And I do feel, and I've written a book on that, that if you let the Chettiars and the Marwadis and the Gujaratis and the Kachi Bhatiyas and the Sindhis, just let them loose, they'll find ways to cooperate. No economist sitting in Niti Aayog will tell you that plastic components in a car interior is a scope for joint venture with China. Incidentally, it's not a joint venture, it's 100% Tata. And we feel very proud that we have relaxed Press Note 3 to allow 10% equity to a Chinese entrepreneur to come here. It's announced with great fanfare. We allow 4 people who can supply some components. But when we want to block the tunnel boring machine coming to India, they block it. We will remember that. I think we need to let trade flow. Trade is like water. If you put an obstacle, it will go around it. Don't stop it. And this is the essence of enterprise. Enterprise is a force which finds its way around obstacles, and like water flows down from the Himalayas down into the Ganga, we should let enterprise flow. And that's what Viksit Vyavasay Bharat for me is. The second part I found on disassembling the Chinese growth is productivity. In economists call it total factor productivity. We improve our economic productivity by 1.5% per year, mostly due to the private sector, not so much due to the government sector. China's is 3. So there is a pathway. In my naive vision, even a scientist, when he looks at something, initially it will make a naive vision, then he progresses it and then he finds the details and he's able to articulate it. Even in my naive vision, 4.5 percentage points of GDP growth is sitting on the table. waiting for Indian people like you and I to grab it. Exports, productivity. And I would like to see an India where the one capital you cannot get for free. You cannot get foreign direct investment. That you make policies convenient, somebody will come with foreign direct investment. Capital you can get. Human capital you cannot get. Human capital has to be built ground up. My old classmate from IIT, in fact, Mr. Dr. Pillai may know him, Ved Prakash Sandlas. I think he became something in ISRO and then DRDO. Very good friend of mine when he was alive. He's gone now. He used to tell me how ISRO built up. Totally, if I may use the word, people with solid technical expertise, with their ambitions rooted, and built a cadre of people who can put a Chandrayaan project for, 15% of what Americans take to put the same project. This is what I mean by using the words of human capital. Our space research, our DRDO, atomic energy, they are not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But they have built up a traditional human capital. We need to do this on a much bigger scale. And I'd like to see a Viksit Vyavasai Bharat where the sole role of government is to invest in human capital. While I cannot say that Kerala and Tamil Nadu have done it perfectly, nobody has done it perfectly, they've done a far better job of human capital, primary education, secondary education, health, so that people can come up and get education. We've got a very, in Tamil we call it aviyal, all the vegetables are mixed together with some sauce. We need to get better at it. So enterprise productivity, enterprise innovation, and focus on human capital are the keys to our becoming Viksit Vyavasai Bharat. And that is I won't be around, but some of you seem to have enough black hair to predict that you will be around. But in 2047, it's a dream that can show signs of good life. And the book that I've written, for which at least I've so far not been pilloried or spoken ill of is every neighbor in a cooperative society has some value to you in a relationship. People in Bombay know how to live in a cooperative society. Frustrating, but essential. India has to live with its neighbors through the frustrations, but necessary. We are in a cooperative society. If you don't believe in a cooperative society, I request you to go back, since most of you would be engineers and given to activities like design and geometry, and you take a compass and put it in Myanmar on a city called Monket, approximately in the middle of Myanmar, and draw a circle which represents 5,000 kilometers from there. Try this when you go home, or get your daughter or son to do it. That circle covers most of China, most of India, little bits of Indonesia and Malaysia, parts of Siberia. Accounts for 15% of the world's land area. 15, but has 55% of the population of human beings. It is Bombay. I call it the Valparaiso Circle because Valparaiso is the name given to it from the person who found this circle, or imagined this circle. Now, if you're living in Bombay, it is different from living in Delhi. In Delhi, everybody has his own adda. Here, nobody has any adda. Everybody has we're all living in cooperative societies where uncooperative people have been assembled very imaginatively. I've never seen a cooperative society where everybody is cooperative. It's only the name. Somehow something your neighbor does will upset you. She puts a flower pot in front of my house. She throws her junk from the window. All that sort of stuff. But yet Bombay people have learned to live with it. Delhi people haven't. So we must bring this instinct that India, with our neighbors, which includes China, whatever the flaws may be, whatever the difficulties may be, there are ways to cooperate. I happened to meet a very senior Chinese leader, and I told him, very often people ask, in what areas should we cooperate? In my book, I've mentioned a few. But then I'm not writing a Niti Ayog report, I'm trying to give something practical. I'm trying to give an idea. And he said, have you ever thought of this? That India is very good in digitization. China is very good in intelligence. Not intelligence in the cognitive human intelligence, but artificial intelligence. Is there a way for us to work together? I don't know what he meant, and I'm not a specialist in those areas. But it illustrates that a businessman's approach, that I must find a way to work together with this, whether it's making plastic components or shoes, or intelligence and digitization, is what will give us the goodies. And I hope you will see some merit in my argument. India and China together, we are neighbors. You don't choose your neighbors. You can choose your wife. You don't choose your children. So you don't choose your neighbors. Only 200-300 years ago, together we were 50% of the world's GDP. And we've had peaceable relations for a long time, 2,500 years. I've covered some of it in my book. And if you go to the Brihadishwara temple in Tanjore, up on the 11th floor, first the question arises, how did they get that high with the instruments and technologies they had in those days? You know what you will find? You will find a Chinese fellow with a straw hat. Google Brihadishwara temple, Tanjore temple, Chinese image. That means the Chinese were coming, no? Go to Calicut. Admiral Jenghi was buried there. He made 8 trips to Calicut, out of Kerala. He died in Calicut. And the connections of the south through the sea route are far more rich, in my opinion, than the land route of Xuanzang, which is what we are taught in history. So we can make peace, not peace, perfect peace, it's like a neighbor, and learn to cooperate where we can with China. And it is my hope that in Viksit Vyavasai Bharat, in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, China and India together will be 50% of the world GDP. They have invested in human potential. So has South Korea. So has Taiwan. So has Singapore. We also can. And if as a nation we have this philosophy that there is more to business than making money, there is inherent pride in creating wealth which doesn't have a tangible asset. And the wealth is of intellectual property, know-how, and of longevity. I believe longevity is an asset. I've worked in 2 companies. Tata is 150 years, and Unilever, which is 100 years, coming up 100 years. And they have really solid longevity assets. And I have done an exercise to show that 60 to 70% of the value of Tata's lies in its longevity assets, not in its physical assets. There is Jamshedpur, there is Pune, and there is TCS and all that stuff, but longevity assets, practices, cultural moorings, ideas, human capital, these are what constitute longevity assets. If India can invest in human assets, longevity assets, create intellectual property, it will be my hope that those of you who are sitting here in IRIM in 2030 or 40 or 50 will say, yeah, we are getting there. I wish you well. Thank you so much for listening to me, and anything else you want me to do is to answer questions. I'm happy to do that. I've gone away from my speech because I felt that the audience here requires to be left with an idea rather than listen to everything that I have prepared. Thank you.
So any questions, please put up your hands. We'll get the mic across to you.
Sir, very good morning. I'm Amitosh from the Hindware company. This is my question.
Could you please stand? So
Yeah,
we can-
please. In last 70 years after the independence, why we are not able to create the, as you told, the human resource and human resource development, why we are not able to create the education system like that, since junior classes to the 12th, at least people are having the hand-on experience like the China's and Japan we had normally seen in the videos. Whatever the policy lapse with India has happened in last 70 years.
I'll answer your question, but not in quite the way you've asked it, because if you start saying these are the policy lapses, this is what's wrong with us, it has a different color to the conversation. I've tried to come to saying whatever has happened has happened. What can we do in the future? Otherwise, you'll end up saying Nehru did this and Indira Gandhi did that, and it's a different discussion. You must first have the purpose in your head, the objective, that human capital is my most valuable resource. It may or may not have been appropriate in 1950, but Panditji did think of IITs. He did think of temples of modern India. Today you might rubbish them or say something not so complimentary. But we focused on higher education and not on primary education. So I don't want to find fault with the past, because that becomes a negative exercise. But going forward, if that can be the focus, I think we will gain. There are enough smart people in this country who can make that happen. And it's not for me to give you an impromptu lecture on how to improve our educational system. But our schools and municipal schools and so on require a great deal of attention. I hope you don't mind my answering it in a slightly diplomatic way rather than keep analyzing the past and finding fault with other people. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you, you're welcome to challenge it. That longevity assets, human assets is what we should focus on. Technology, R&D, branding, capabilities, human capabilities. And a very good example, though the balance sheet is not in the market, stock market, is our own ISRO. Look at the things, the marvels they've achieved. They have not gone into primary education. They've taken, I say you take ordinary people and lead them to achieve extraordinary results. Hasn't ISRO had those kinds of leaders? They have. So there are examples all around us. Pink papers don't write about ISRO. I know a little bit about ISRO only because my friend Sandlas began his career there. I began my career somewhere else, and then we've been in touch for while he was alive. I hope that's a reasonable answer.
Anybody else with another question? Right here, could you bring the mic here, please? Please, if you could just stand up. So.
Hello. First of all, very insightful thoughts, sir. Thank you very much for that. Just one question. What you see was the real differentiator between India and China in the last 20, 30 years, where China's GDP became actually 5 times of India's. And how you see India over a period of time? Just one.
How you feel?
How you see India growing over a period of time for the next 20, 30 years, and where India should really focus upon
Yeah,
from manufacturing perspective.
you see, if you look at the journey of what India did and China did, again, I don't want to answer it that they did wonderful things, we did stupid things. That's not the answer. It's neither the answer I feel in my heart, nor is it the answer I would like to even suggest indirectly. If in the course of our thinking, we had said that we want to be economically powerful, we are so obsessed with our own problems, and we have many. China also has many. We don't have the means that they have. That also is accepted. But China, if you look at their history and their culture, even Mao Zedong used to refer to Confucius and Sun Tzu when he would draw lessons. They are very traditional in one sense. They are very iconoclastic in another sense. And I think I would assume it's a decision to centralize their politics but decentralize their economics. It's quite different from our model. We centralize everything. You give it to a 3-alphabet cadre of people who are capable of putting rules around it so that... Look at China, where admittedly their system is different. People from the state achieve prominence in the national by what investments and business they did in that place. You think Shenzhen happened by accident? You think Guangdong happened by accident? You think I was invited by somebody to come and open another factory by accident? I'll give you one example. My former chairman is a scientist, not in Tata's but in Levers. And he went on to be the research director internationally. And one of the research centers he opened for Unilever was in Shanghai. This is about 30, 40 years ago. You go, you open it, some dignitary comes, you all cut a ribbon, some photographs are taken, usual stuff. He came back. He then retired, and 20 years later, he was a member of our Rajya Sabha in India, and he went to China. That person there said, "Oh, you are so-and-so. I remember this. Didn't you come 15 years ago open a research center?" He said, "Yeah, how do you remember?" He said, "No, that research center has taken so many Chinese men and boys and girls who have become top scientists in our country. After this function is over, stay back and we'll have Mai Tai together." That's the level of involvement. One of my factory manager, a factory manager of my Nanjing plastics unit was traveling to Shanghai, and he had to be quarantined because this not Ebola, what is it called? That some virus was there in 2007, chikungunya or something. So they had to sequestrate him. We were all very worried. He was sequestrated in China. And they looked after him so well. Can you imagine the industries commissioner coming and seeing you in hospital twice a day? Saying, "I'm very sorry we've had to do this, but unless we sequestrate you, you're vegetarian, I'll give you vegetarian food. You want to speak to your wife, I'll arrange for you to speak to her." He was so we have to think of enterprise with a heart. It can't be by rule books. That's what I would like to see through this enterprise charter and awakening. You know, Swami Vivekananda said this, to do business. When Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago and New York, they asked him, "Swamiji, you're talking all these highfalutin stuff, about Vedanta, we don't understand. We are petty businessmen. We run shops and petrol pumps and so on. Not even petrol pumps, grocery store. Can you give us some simple advice? What is it in the Vedantic principle that we should follow in running our business?" And after a lot of thought, he said, I'm not a businessman, but this much I can tell you. You have to do only 3-4 things. Number one, he said, protect the resources that enable you to do business. No ESG was known at that time. He said this, you are able to do business because of the soil, the water, the air, and the people. Protect them, take care of them, everything else will get taken care of. Second, take tough decisions, but always have compassion. Without human compassion, it won't stay. Sensible advice? In this way, I won't go into the whole thing. There are 3 or 4 simple things. I would very much like that kind of Vedantic principle to come into our Indian Enterprise Charter. That we want to have builders who can deal with enterprise with humanity. I think India can globalize compassion. That would be something which will make every Indian very proud with the traditions that we have. Otherwise, just going around and wearing a cape and, that's not what I mean. I'm very proud as an Indian. I'm not a fanatic, but I'm very proud of the traditions that we have got in India, not just in Hindu Vedantism, Jainism, Buddhism, even Islam. Every religion has contributed to this country's way of thinking. If you can globalize the compassion that way, it's a great example. Okay? Right at the back.
Right at the back there. Could you take the mic across? Oh, okay.
Can I ask a question in the interim, sir?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I think a very inspirational talk. My name is Arun Gopalakrishnan from ITC, which is another 120-year-old enterprise. I've also had the fortune of commissioning India's first indigenous nuclear submarine, another DRDO product. And incidentally, since you talked so much about the Chinese, there's one interesting trivia. Their first indigenous nuclear submarine sailed for an entire 15 days in their lifetime. So the human capital is there in India. What stuck with me, sir, is when you said we must be builders and not extractors. I totally agree with that. And just to give you a case in point,
Sorry to interrupt. Is there a question that you...
Yes, sir. I'm coming
Yes.
to the question.
Okay.
I'm sorry if it's a little long. It's more of an observation, but I would like an opinion from sir. So my point is, when you build and don't extract, the business automatically follows, sir. So case in point is, at ITC, we set up these biomass boilers across our factories. At that time, the ROI was a little low, but given the present geopolitics, it has paid back. So I totally with your point that we should be builders and not extractors. That's an observation that I have. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. In fact, ITC is a very good example since you mentioned it. Every cigarette company in the world has tried to diversify away from cigarettes. Not one has succeeded other than ITC. This is what I mean by a native wisdom. They've all bought food companies, extracted, thrown them to the dust, and then sold them off. Philip Morris, KKR. Look what ITC has done. Abhi kaam baki hai, it's not completed. But they got 50% of their business coming out of agriculture, exports, FMCG. It's another good, small little example that is worth taking. Yeah, okay. Is there?
There's a lady in the corner there. Yeah.
Question that how can an Indian manufacturing company balance the global competitiveness by investing in a long-term human capital rather than focusing on a short-term
In the same way that we raise our kids. We are living in a very competitive environment for our kids to study in school. All of you are parents or grandparents like I am. We know that. How do you balance short-term with long-term? You do balancing short-term with long-term because there are two different circuits in the brain. I mean, this is neurologists have taught me this. I didn't know this. There are two different circuits in the brain, the lower circuit and the upper circuit. The lower circuit deals with here and now issues. When I see my daughters raising their children, or my daughter-in-law, the child is crapping, he's yelling, all sorts of chaos is happening. And their lower circuit is operating, give some food, change the nappy, whatever. But their upper circuit never stops functioning. Because as soon as she gets a few minutes respite, she will ring up a friend and say, what did you do? How do you plan for school admission? We have to, it is there. Every human being has that. In our Vedanta, the Parthasarthi says, you have a lower circuit, you have upper circuit. Daniel Goleman calls it by a different name, but he's using the same principle. We have to use our upper and lower circuit. Too many of our business people are using their lower circuit because government, regulations, ease of doing business is occupying that space. They don't have time to think of the upper circuit. That's why I'm suggesting, can we relieve the atmosphere itself of chaos? If you want to improve the traffic conditions in Bombay, you have to create a coastal road, you have to create a different form of housing. Otherwise, everybody will be stuck in traffic jam forever. We are in industry or enterprise in that state. I think mothers are the greatest example of balancing short-term and long-term. That the question comes from a person who's already a mother or potentially a mother, I'm very interested. I learn from my daughters and daughter-in-law how they manage short and long term. And I tell my managers, when I was in service, of course, that go home and ask your mother how she managed it. You'll learn much more than you go and learn from IIM. Okay.
There was a gentleman who had his hand up in the second row here. Yes, there.
Hello. This is Sunil from Dassault Systems. So I had a question regards to enabler of those resources, that Vedantic principle that you talked. So when it comes to business ecosystems, you can import talent, you can import capital, you can also import equipment. But infrastructure is what? Something which has to be built in-house. And I'm not just speaking about roads and bridges. I'm talking about if I were to open a mom and pop shop for an ice cream, I need electricity. If I'm doing Internet of Things for a manufacturing setup, I need telecom. And there has been great progress over the past few decades when it comes to such kind of infrastructure. What do you feel would be the next leap when it comes to infrastructure building of this kind? Which would really enable and make us more competitive in the manufacturing sector, sir?
I don't think you have a very good and complex question, and it would be naive for me to give you some obvious answers as though I have thought about it a lot. But anything that happens in India through the chaos that is, as my Chinese colleague used to tell me, he said, sir, one of your great strengths in you Indians is that you can deal with chaos. It's a great weakness of Chinese that we can't deal with chaos, we need order. And then I said, that's nice to know. But he said, but there's one difference. We cannot perform without order. You people cannot perform without chaos. I said, that's a harsh judgment of Indians, because you're so used to chaos, everything becomes orderly. Indians, that's why Indians do so well when they go abroad. So if we can philosophically apply our mind, and that's why I'm coming from philosophy and talking of an Indian enterprise charter, and get alignment between what the state has to do and what the center has to do, what the industrialist has to do. Each person has a role in a family. This is a family. I think many of these will they won't vanish, but they will begin to sort out. We will create a coastal road, but the approach on the other side will get jammed up. So you get stuck in a different place, but you get stuck all the same. That sort of stuff, coordination. Okay.
I think we've run out of time there. Thank you very much. You could try and catch him offline if you still have a question. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.